You're listening to The Bird Bath. This episode of The Bird Bath is brought to you by Ignite Veterinary Solutions, creators of the Veterinary Receptionist Certificate of Excellence, the VRCE. CSR Week is in April. Celebrate your front desk if you want, but if you're serious about performance, elevate it. With more than 1,000 graduates and thousands more enrolled, VRCE is becoming the standard across veterinary medicine. Graduates report greater confidence booking appointments, 82% report higher confidence in financial conversations, and 80% remain in their role, representing a 50% reduction in front desk turnover. More appointments, stronger financial conversations, greater stability. Your front desk drives your revenue. Train it like it matters. This isn't a feel-good training, it's economic performance. Join the movement. Visit vrce.vet and use the coupon code BIRDBATH25 for a special offer for VRCE General Practice, VRCE Specialty and Emergency, and now VRCE in Espanol. Welcome back to the Bird Bath. Each week we scrape the surface of the news you need to know, so let's get into it. The top story or stories this week is kind of an overall trend of things that are happening. Now, we hit on some of it last week, but more and more keeps happening. First off, we're talking about the VPA fight, or the sort of entanglement of what's going to happen with veterinary professional associates. And last week, we hit on some stuff in the Substack. We talked about some reporting that Vin did, and then a letter from the AVMA sort of disputing some of those points. And then we harked back to the webinar that we did about a year ago talking about some of these issues. But most recently, and this week, NAVTA, which is the National Association of Veterinary Technicians in America, dropped a position statement saying they do not support the VPA or mid-level practitioner role. They say it lacks clinical preparation and doesn't integrate credentialed technicians, and it risks weakening team-based care. The task force chair, Anna Santos, said, "We believe further alignment with established education and credentialing pathways is necessary to ensure strong clinical preparation and meaningful integrations with the care team." NAVTA President Jennifer Serling, who actually is in our next story as well, said, "By supporting structured educational pathways from accredited associate programs to bachelor's and master's degrees, alongside robust certifications, we help ensure sustainable practice models, a strong veterinary workforce, and most importantly, high standards of patient care." They're opening up for people to be able to sort of put their words out here. They will have a listening session March 19th. But while that's happening, Colorado and quite a few other states are already moving forward with the VPA. I believe Florida's coming through, and quite a few other states have been reviewing this and looking at it across the board. Now, if that wasn't enough for you, Arizona has just passed a bill in their Senate, kind of making things a little easier, but maybe not as great for people that are looking to become veterinary technicians. They've created an alternative vet tech certificate. They say that with 4,000 hours of supervised on-the-job training under a licensed vet within 6 years, people will be able to have a vet tech certification. They still have to pass the national exam, and it's been something that's been supported by the Arizona Humane Society. In a statement, they said, "Currently there are several hundred open veterinary technicians positions in the state of Arizona." And Jennifer Serling, who we talked about in the last one, is the Arizona Vet Tech Association president. She's doing double duty here, keeping busy. She said, "We're doing phlebotomy, anesthesia, radiology, and we need the education. It's not just knowing the how to do it. You need to know the why behind it." So the bill is not fully passed. It passed Senate and it's moving through the House now. So we will see and stay on top of this, but kind of an interesting angle here. It's definitely something that the hands-on training is super important, and it's something that a lot of people care about. But I do understand the idea that people need to know what's going on behind it, right? You're not drawing blood. You're not just drawing blood. You're sort of understanding what's coming out, where the veins are, what all the things are. It's not just a checkbox, but it is something more there. But is 4,000 hours enough to learn those sort of things? And you have to pass the exam as well. So more to say there. But the AVMA was not done in their view on this topic. So they also put out some distance education guardrails. The AVMA Council on Education, who we've talked about a lot, the COE, has finalized new standards for vet school distance learning. The reason this all ties together, stick with me here, right? The VPA role in Colorado, one of the big hurdles that the AVMA had with that was the distance learning piece. The fact that it's not all clinical education and that it can be done in distance learning for a lot of things. They say that's not good enough. Now the COE has come out with the standards for vet school. They say no more than 15% of preclinical curriculum can be online. Clinical rotations and lab courses cannot be delivered remotely. They did highlight some exceptions for 2+2 or 1+3 programs. And those are the programs where students do their first 1 to 2 years of preclinical coursework at a partner institute or remotely. And then they finish their final years of clinical training on campus at the vet school. I think that's the key thing for them. As the COE is looking at this, they're talking about people needing to be hands-on and learning in a classroom and in a wet lab situation. Now, bring this back to our Arizona story. Arizona is saying, hey, maybe that's good enough for a veterinary technician to be able to have 4,000 hours of supervised on-the-job training. 4,000 hours over 6 years, I think 6 years might be a little long to give people the opportunity there. That's a bit of a stretch, but 4,000 hours is, if you're working 40 hours a week, it's just about 2 years of hands-on experience working 40 hours a week. So after 2 years, are people ready to go if they have to pass the exam? Well, in the vet school for COE, they're saying that, hey, that 2 years needs to be in the clinic and on the campus with clinical training. So lots of things going on. The COE chair, Dr. Jesse Hotstetter, said, we know DE can be an incredibly valuable tool, but you need to do it right. So those are the big pieces there around what's going on with the workforce. Meanwhile, Minnesota has put in place their LVT licensure, entitled protection, scope of practice, and a lot of things in the workforce there. Dechra had some big news last week. They are following the footsteps of the pilgrims before them, packing up from England and heading over to Boston. Their new 2,800 square foot facility at 1 Marina Park Drive is set to be operational in June 2026, and they're closing offices all over the US and that global headquarters in England. So they're closing their offices in Portland, Greensboro, and Kansas City. And the goal here is for them to sort of bring all of the stuff they've got going on to the US shores. In the press release, they said the relocation reflects Dechra's continued investment in the growing North American market and its ambition to accelerate growth in veterinary specialty care. Boston has quite a interesting life sciences space. There's a lot of different labs that work out of the space. Chewy has an office in the space. A lot of companies are in the Boston area. They even hold the Animal Health Nutrition and Technology Innovation Summit there every single year. And so it definitely makes sense to see them in Boston. It's a bit of a loss for the KC Animal Health Corridor to see them leaving there, but definitely some big things happening. The last little bit of consolidation in the UK is going to be bringing all those offices into Manchester. Hills dropped one of my favorite things each year, their State of Shelter Pet Adoption Report, and the spotlight this year was on large dogs. They surveyed 2,000 Americans plus shelter animal count data, and 2.8 million dogs entered U.S. shelters in 2025, down 4% from last year. Large dogs, though, make up 26% of the intake, but just 22% of the adoptions, which you never want those numbers to not be aligned. They also spend 70% more time in shelters than small dogs, and the median was 17 days versus 10 for the smaller dogs. In the data that they found, the number one barrier was confidence in handling. People said that they were unlikely to adopt or likely to adopt just based on how confident they felt handling these larger dogs. I have only had larger dogs. I've only been a golden retriever person, thanks to my wife's edict that we are golden retriever people. But I understand, it's a bigger dog, and it's something that until you're around the mix of different dogs, you don't really realize. If you jump into it with the big guys, you sort of stick with the big guys. But Gen Z and millennials are 2 times as likely to consider a larger dog as a boomer, which kind of makes sense. 68% of people said it's harder to find housing that allows large dogs. They're harder to travel with. There's a lot more to it. And as populations age, I could see that value of wanting to scale back to a smaller pet. One cool case study that they did have was the Wisconsin Humane Society launched Benchwarmer Tryouts, which was their foster to adopt trial for long-stay dogs. So they found dogs that had been there for a while, and they were able to get them into homes, and they were able to reduce the length of their stay from 4.8 to 4.2 days, and they had 68 foster applications just in 1 month. So really cool things. Always a big fan of when Hills puts this out. Be sure to check out the report. I'll make sure we put a link in the show notes. And if big dogs weren't your thing, well, maybe kitty cats are your thing. That's right, I said kitty cats on a public show here. The Catalyst Council dropped their early findings from their 2026 State of the Cat report. It's the largest feline-focused household survey ever. They talked to 60,000 plus US households. They say in the data that there's 76 million domestic cats in the US, and only 1 in 3 cats gets an annual vet care versus 7 in 10 dogs. So cats are not getting to the vet as often as they should, and nowhere near as often as veterinarians. There's a huge available feline market that people should be focusing on from this data here. There's a $34 billion market, yet only $12.7 billion of that is served today. Per practice, in the breakdown from the Catalyst Council, they said that there's over a $600,000 per practice opportunity. Nearly $500,000 from closing the medicalization gap, and an additional $166,000 from closing that care of intensity gap. So people aren't bringing them in, you're not selling them the medications they need, and you're not closing the appointments that they need. Feline visits did go up 2% from 2023 to 2025, and kitten adoptions, thank you to the Hills report above, were also 9 to 10% above historical baselines, while puppy adoptions were down almost a quarter. From some of the reports here, most owners incorrectly believe that indoor cats need fewer wellness visits. I think when you see a cat and the ability for them to sort of mirror or for them to mask a lot of their symptoms probably drives people to not feel as on top of their cat's wellness as possible. Executive Director Gina Fortunato said the veterinary profession has a growing understanding of how it underserves cats and their owners. From this survey, we now know who these owners are and what they believe. So if you're looking for ways to ramp up the utilization of your practice or revenue within your practice, the Catalyst Council is saying there's $21 billion sitting out there, and all you have to do is get people in the door so that you can participate in that. For more on these and other stories, join us by subscribing to our Substack. There's a link in the show notes. And if you're looking to hear more about any of these things, reach out. I always love hearing from the listeners to hear what stories you all like, what we should focus on, and what else we can bring to you. For the Bird Bath, I'm Ryan Leach. See you next week.